It's time for Around the Ozarks Sports Scene, sponsored by Thompson Sales, Fast Break Sports, and The Pitch. Here's your host, Scott Purrier.
Welcome into another edition of Around the Ozarks Sports Scene. I am Scott Purrier. As always, big thank you to you for tuning in this week, viewing or listening. We have the audio version and the video version since we've been doing it since February. And as you know, big thanks to our sponsors, Fast Break Sports, The Pitch Pizza and Pub, and Thompson Sales. And we like to take a little break from the stick and ball sports that we talk about all the time on this each week to mix in some fun stuff. And we're going to talk some barbecue today with Brad Leighninger, the World Championship Barbecue Pitmaster, who owns the Gettin Basted restaurants in Nixon, Branson, and just finished a stint on the Food Network's Barbecue Brawl reality show where he was in the final three. And honestly, Brad, we all thought you got screwed. We thought you should have won it, but this was filmed back when?
It was filmed in February down in Austin, Texas.
And how long were you down there?
We were there for 18 days.
18 days. Wow.
Yeah,
so how hard is it for you? I mean, when they film the whole thing in one setting, for you to sit there and be quiet and not tell anybody what actually happens, because we're all watching Sunday night from 8 o'clock till 9:30 to see the very end, to see who won. And you know it all the time. I'm guessing you didn't even watch, did you?
I didn't watch it then. I haven't actually watched all the episodes. I did watch the finale. Finally, I was coming back. I was competing out east, and I watched it on the plane ride back on Monday morning. So I did get a chance to watch this one. But I've known, and I've had a lot of people ask me. And of course, you signed a non-disclosure agreement and legal contracts and everything else that you're not going to talk about it. So I knew, and of course, a lot of people real close to me knew. But they obviously can't have that information getting out for obvious reasons.
Absolutely, and you were competing as you do just about every weekend, right? So you didn't see all the hubbub about it live. You know, the people going to the restaurants to watch, and quite a debate at the end of it. I'm obviously a fan of Basted and barbecue, and I had thoughts that I shared the next day, and I think people agreed. We thought you should have won. I mean, did you feel like in the end that you maybe did enough to win it?
It's one of those things that I compete enough, and I made enough mistakes in that finale. They had us cooking all night, so we'd already done 2 high pressure emotional challenges that day, and then we turned around and we cooked for 15 more hours. So we were cooked for approximately 30 hours straight. And just being tired, being everything else, I made enough mistakes that, look, I had my chance to win it. I probably should have won it. And I made enough mistakes that I didn't get it done. And man, hats off to Kyle. Kyle's a great cook, and he had great food that day. And, it's just, I don't think necessarily I got screwed is the right word. I think you had 3 extremely talented chefs there. And all the food was really good, and the judges like Kyle's the best, and I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously, I want to win. I want to win everything I do, but sometimes you get beat, and that's okay.
And did they ever explain their tiebreaker, or did they just come out and say Kyle wins?
Man, it's TV. The tiebreaker was he had a better story or told his story through food better. Was kind of the deal, and he did a great job of that throughout the season, with the Appalachian, and some of that's how they choose to edit it. I tried to talk about the Ozarks a lot, Missouri, and I was the competition guy. I'll have a role to fill, and being the competition guy, my story might not have been as compelling. So I get it. Kyle's a great guy, and happy he won. And
he had the heart tugging story for his, with his dad and everything,
absolutely.
I don't know. I went back and watched episode 1 where you were literally the last kid picked on the playground, for the teams. And how did it bother you a little bit? I mean, because nobody wants to be that guy when you're in 4th grade. And here you are, a world champion several times over, and you're picked last out of 12.
Yeah, I was surprised I got picked last. But they call it barbecue brawl, but historically, people that do competition barbecue aren't the ones that are doing the best on that. It's really chef driven. It's more chef driven barbecue. So, being the underdog at that thing, I might have been a little bit coming in, or as far as they know, I might not have been the favorite or whatever coming in. So, yeah, it definitely motivates me, man. I mean, I'm always competing for a chip, for a reason to get out. And extra motivation, and it definitely gave me that chip.
Well, and it had to be kind of cool to hear Tyler, your finalist, co-finalist there with you, call you the Michael Jordan of barbecue too. That was pretty cool, wasn't it?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I think a lot of them who I was coming into it just from the stuff I've done at barbecue, and it's always humbling having your peers speak you that way. And I've had a chance since to cook a competition with Tyler. He came out to a competition that I won there in Connecticut. And Kyle's going to come with me to the Jack Daniel's World Championship this year and do my chef's choice
That's
dish.
Cool.
Yeah.
He just seemed like a really nice guy. Kyle did. Yeah,
they all were. And Tyler too. Well, everybody in that finale. I mean, and even Orchid and Greg and people coming before that were fantastic, very talented, and also very, very good people.
Before we move on to some other stuff, as a viewer, I got questions here. You talk about the mistakes. You didn't make a breakfast item that tied in with your final feast, and you did steak and eggs. I'd eaten steak and eggs all day long, and they loved it. Should Bobby have told you that or corrected you?
Well, Bobby wasn't there, when that was coming in, and I misunderstood that challenge. That was on me. We were operating on no sleep. I think that was at 5 o'clock in the morning. And when they came in and said what the challenge was, I had misunderstood what Carson had said. And so I could have made life easier on myself by grabbing something. I kind of figured it out partway through. I kind of talked to Tyler, and he's like, no, this is what we're doing. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. And so that was on me. Whether I wasn't paying attention or was sleeping through it, or we had a lot going on. I had all my sides were on the grill at the time when he came walking up there, and had a lot on my mind, and he's kind of going through that. And I'm still cooking, because we got everything. It's not like all our other stuff stops. And so he kind of said the rules, and true to my nature, I might not have been paying enough attention to the authority figure as I should have been. And I ended up catching me. I mean, I made a great dish, but I obviously my gameplay there was pretty weak, and man, that extra point or two cost me.
What would you have done breakfast wise with what your final feast was if you had to do it over again?
The funny thing is, I would have done exactly what Tyler ended up doing. I would have done, there's a lot of good Mexican fusion breakfast places that do breakfast tacos, down in Austin. And I would have made a play off that. I would have taken a slice of that brisket, made some tortillas and fried an egg and put it on there, and maybe some refried beans, and done a play off of an Austin, barbecue brisket breakfast taco. And it would have been great. And it's one of those things that afterwards you're saying, yeah, it's pretty clear I should have done that. But I think, again, it's on me. I didn't understand the rules, didn't listen, I didn't pay attention enough. And I actually made things harder on myself and made a worse dish.
And then the damn torch, come on, we can't get a torch to work on the final feast there, right? What happened there?
Yeah. No, it was having some troubles, and they went and got me another one, but obviously the clock was ticking, and I couldn't get the corn brulee, and some of it was on me. Like I said, my sides got a little bit overcooked. We had an hour for that breakfast challenge, and they got neglected. And man, my corn, something we make every day. We make, huge batches of it every day. Bread and butter foundational stuff. I messed it up a little bit, and that was one of my mistakes. I don't do that. I probably win. My potatoes were a little bit overcooked. My potato salad, they liked it, but I had to go in there and get a lot. Bobby was telling me to put green onions in there. I was trying to get something back in there for texture, because it was a little soft. So it's just it's funny thing is they thought, hey, you're the barbecue guy, you stay up all night and you're going to cook, and this is but I don't stay up all night when I cook these contests. I get up at 6 a.m. I get a good night's sleep. Get up at 6 a.m. and then we cook everything. I cook everything hot and fast. And so, really, I'm an old man, staying up all night is not my wheelhouse. And it's funny as I find my level of how much I care goes down, the more tired I get. And so that's one of those things afterwards. You're like, yeah, man, I probably wish I would have cared a little bit more. But at the time I'm just thinking about, all right, let's get through this and get back to the hotel and get to bed.
But that bed looks so comfortable there. That little Three Little Bears bed you guys are in.
Well, it's funny is they had the production over in the other half of that room, right? So they never turned the lights off in there. They were in there talking, doing everything. So I laid down for a couple of hours. That I was but I don't know that I slept at all. I might have gotten an hour. It was kind of like sleeping on an airplane, I might have dozed in and out for a couple of hours, for an hour or so. But It wasn't sleep. And that was part of the challenge. It was managing that. It got to Tyler a little bit too, I think. Kyle was smart, in that he made a lot of sausage on the show, which, I make sausage, but not like, I think if I ever, if they have I always joke they're going to have a Brawl Stars season. If they do, I'll work on my sausage making because, man, he got one of them dishes knocked out. He made those sausages, smoked them before he went to bed. He got a lot done before he went to sleep. And I kind of backloaded my stuff because I treated it more like a normal competition. So I kind of was cooking later. Those guys got stuff done up front, which some of that might be some of their experience. I do have restaurants. I do cook in restaurant environments, but I'm not trained. I'm self-trained, right? I never went to culinary school. Some of that stuff might have hurt me a little bit that they ended up getting a little bit of more stuff done before they went to bed, before they retired. If I could do it again, I would have front loaded some of my work. And man, doing that sausage was incredibly smart because it sounds more impressive than it is, if that makes any sense. It's everybody likes it, and it's something you can get done ahead of time. You're not trying to do it at the last minute. So very, very smart cooking by Kyle.
One of the debates that some friends and I were having on Facebook, and there are a couple of my buddies that are tailgate guys, Lyndall Scranton and Steve Kaler,
Sure.
We're talking about the one judge, Rodney Scott. He's a barbecue pitmaster by trade, right?
Yeah.
And was complaining about the sauce being a little sweet or something like that. I mean, come on, that's our style in this region, isn't it?
It is, and I did what we do, and look, at the end of the day, they're nitpicking. Everybody cooked really well, and so part of that is they're editing, they're finding flaws that aren't maybe that big of flaws, right? And they're going through and the feedback's, man, this is great, it's awesome, but they got to film a flaw, right? And so every dish almost that mine and Kyle's and Tyler's, they would sit back there and they'd find a small flaw and they would film that, right? They'd be like, okay, but this, and so the sweetness in context was really a nitpick, if that makes any sense. The editing overplayed it, and I knew that was going to be, Bobby is not a sweet person. And so they played that up, but there was a lot of stuff Bobby made, that was his job really was to kind of play the foil to that. And man, I had a ton of other sauces. The ribs had like a crispy garlic and they had a chili sauce on them that Bobby had made. We put a bunch of pickled chilies and a bunch of acidic juice over the top of the chicken. So we did a lot of that stuff. They kind of portrayed it like I kind of ignored what Bobby said, which couldn't have been further from the truth. We tried to play off that. And that's what I tasked Bobby with doing. Was, hey, I'm going to be Kansas City style. I'm going to be sweet. What I need you to do is make me elements that play off that. And he did that. Look, it was all good. Honestly, my mistakes were technical and execution. I had a couple of mistakes that ended up counting me down and with the side dishes, frankly, and overcooked the brisket a little bit in my mind. And I got dinged on that. That was my the only meat mistake I had all year, but it's still very good. And there were just no margins for error that day. I mean, just the talent level was that high, and could I have won it? I can look back, kick myself. Should I won it? Yeah, I think I should have won it. But it's hard to be mad about not winning something when you are the one that are making mistakes that could have been prevented.
Absolutely, and as a first time viewer, this is season 6 of it. I hadn't seen any of the previous seasons. Some people educated me that I'm a barbecue guy. I'm a brisket and pulled pork and I was seeing things with beets and all this stuff that I would never even in my mind ever order in a barbecue restaurant. Was this your first go around with a reality TV like this? And did you learn about other dishes because of things like that?
No, I did Guys Grocery Games. I won Guys Grocery Games episodes. Probably, I don't know. It's been before COVID, so 6-7 years ago. And I went against James Beard Award nominated chefs there. And look, I can play in that realm, right? Like I cook enough. I don't have the finesse or necessarily the technique. I get hit on plating, but I can cook those flavors. I can cook vegetables. I can cook desserts. I can cook. I can bake. I can do all that stuff, which really gives me a tremendous advantage coming to these shows over some of the competition pitmasters that have been on in the past, is because I do that stuff. I mess around with it every day at the restaurants, right? Doing recipe development, doing stuff. Look, they bring in different diverse people to do this and for obvious reasons. And some of them are heavy barbecue background. Some of them are might be cooking more ethnic cuisines, or Tyler's a fine dining chef, and he brought that into it. And so I think that's what's cool about it is and it's the reason I did it is I wanted to go up against somebody like Tyler that has that background and prove that I can hang in flavor dishes with somebody that's been, he's worked for fantastic chefs. I mean, he's been nominated for the best chef in the Northeast by the James Beard Foundation for the last 10 years. So to be able to go in there and hang with him, with flavor, maybe not technique and presentation, but definitely with flavor. I mean, that's why I did it. I did it to prove something to myself.
Would you do it again, or would you do another one? And what was the hardest part about 18 days in Austin, Texas, all cooking in a row?
Well, I mean, yeah, I'd do it again. I mean, I enjoyed it. I didn't necessarily like all the editing of the deal, but as far as the experience of cooking, man, I really enjoyed it. And everybody on the set, everybody on the production, everybody there is top notch. I mean, they're very, very good people. Bobby and Antonia and Manit are all fantastic people, fantastic, mentors, so to speak. But yeah, I would do it. The hardest part is just the time away. I mean, you're working. It's not like you're 18 days away. You're every day. It's a full day, so you're almost on an island for 3 weeks, and that's the hardest part of it. And mentally, it gets draining as well, just because it is. You just never know what you're going to get thrown into, and just constantly thinking about the food and thinking about everything else. So it's a mental challenge, but I like that. I mean, that's why I compete. And so, yeah, I would do it again for the competition aspect of it. As far as the winning or losing, it probably didn't mean as much to me in my career as it means to some of these other ones. So I'm glad to see somebody like Kyle, whose restaurant's a little bit newer than mine, and it's just up and coming. And it doesn't necessarily have the notoriety to get this win, because it probably means a little bit more to him. I'm doing it to hang put a notch on my belt, and he's really doing it for career growth. So, I was glad to see him get the win.
Tell us about Brad Leininger and how this all started. I mean, in high school, did you mess around with grilling? Kind of take us back to your high school days and beyond, and how this all originated from that to competitive chef or barbecue guy.
I mean, I grew up, military family, but my grandparents were both, lived on farmers, and I grew up cooking meat around hogs, around everything else, with my grandmother and my grandpa, on their hog farm up in Northwest Missouri. So that was kind of my initial exposure to, barbecue, so to speak. But we were always grilling, pork steaks, grilling up sausages, grilling up whatever, right? Cuts of pork. And they were tremendous cooks. Both my grandmothers were. And then I worked in restaurants. I worked in restaurants all through high school. I worked in restaurants all through college. And I, my wife and I actually met at a restaurant, and I continued to work in restaurants until, even after I got a, quote unquote, real job out of college. I still on the weekends still did to make extra money until we had our first child, until we had Molly, who's now getting ready to be 17. So really, up until 17 years ago, I worked in restaurants, and I left and just did, I did IT stuff for years, but I got into competition. I love competing. I played, football in college, the lower level school. And I've always been a competitor. I mean, my family's always been competitors, and we ran into a barbecue competition there in Springfield, Rockin' Ribs, back in 2012. And we watched a show called Pitmasters all the time. And we always cooked barbecue. My brother-in-law always cooked barbecue at the lake. We'd always been grilling and cooking stuff out. And we're like, heck, we should try to do this. And so we signed up for Rockin' Ribs and went out there and actually did really well. We've got 3, they call them meat calls, when you're in the top 10, and we got 3 of those out of the 4, and we finished up, I think, 6th overall in our first ever contest. And kind of the hook was set from there, and just started competing. And the restaurants came from that, just from people I'd met earlier that I'd worked with in the restaurant industry that had wanted to open their own place, retire the corporate grind. And we all kind of came together as a collab on Gettin Basted at the restaurant. And so it's just been a long journey. I mean, it's just, it's funny how you end up here. Never anything I ever dreamed I'd be doing, but I couldn't be more thrilled.
Tell me more about the football. What'd you play position wise, and where'd you play?
Yeah, I played, I guess you'd more call it defensive end now, it's outside linebacker kind of. I played at Washington University in St. Louis. So way back in the early 90s. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And you finished high school in South Dakota, I think you said?
Yeah, I did. I was a better offensive lineman than I was a defensive player, but I didn't quite have the size back then to do that. So I ended up playing on the defensive side of the ball in college. And, man, I just love competing, love football.
So when they called you with the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame, said we want to put you in, did you think that was the football at first, or did you think it was barbecue?
I knew it was barbecue, man. I mean, I played and I was, a decent Division III player, but I wasn't anybody that was up here setting records or anything, So I knew it was barbecue. I thought it was pretty funny. I always joke, I'm in the wing with the fishermen and the bowlers and the poker players and everything else. But, look, everybody's always just into sport. I don't know, but it's competitive. I can tell you that. And so in that aspect, it's may not be necessarily athletic, but it's certainly, it's certainly as competitive as anything I've ever done.
Well, it's got judges. It's a competition, and it's got a clock in most cases, right? A countdown clock.
Absolutely, it does.
Just like the other things. What was the first breakthrough victory for you that said, hey, you know what? I can do this, and this can be my full-time career?
I don't know. It just kind of ended up being a career. The first time there's a guy out of Kansas, the Kansas City area that True Bud Barbecue was his name. And this is like back in 2014. I'd been cooking competition barbecue for a couple of years, and I had some wins and was doing pretty well. And he just won the Kansas City Barbecue Society Team of the Year. And we were kind of at the bar celebrating his victory. And he's the first guy that ever looked at me and said, hey, what's your goals in this? And before I just been out, having some drinks with the friends and turning in some meat in the parking lot. So that's the first time that I ever looked at it, was like, what am I trying to get out of this? What are my goals out of this? And right then, I told him, hey, I want to be Team of the Year in chicken, because I just got 4th or 5th that 2014. I said, I want to win this next year. And it's kind of the first time I vocalized a goal in barbecue. And it turns out I did do that next year. And that was the first time they really looked at it and said, okay, maybe I can take this more seriously and go through. And so I attribute that to kind of his mindset in barbecue. And I really started treating it more like, okay, what can I take this? What can I get out of this? Everything else is just kind of slow. Look, it's worked out. I've got tremendous business partners at the restaurants that have allowed me to still go out and do a lot of the competition stuff while they go in and do a lot of the operations. I do all the food. I do a lot of the stuff as far as menu development, this and that, but I've been lucky that I don't have to go and work shifts in the restaurant every day. We'll go when we open up, do stuff in there, but it's not like, hey, Friday night, I got to go be on the line, right? I'm fortunate and been set up with good people around, and that I'm still able to do the competition side of things while I have the restaurants, and very fortunate that it ended up that way. And that's probably the only way I would have ever done it. When we were partnering up with Jason and Derek and Tanny, and we're looking at doing Gettin Basted, I'm talking to my wife. I'm like, are we ever going to do anything with this, ourselves? And no, we're not. So, okay, let's go ahead and bring them in, to the Gettin Basted family and let them, work and do what they do, which is operate restaurants.
What's your favorite event or side championship? Not category, but favorite place to go cook, and what's the one you get fired up for still today?
I love the Jack Daniel's World Championship down in Lynchburg, Tennessee, just because it's, the American Royal is fantastic. Memphis in May is fantastic, but they're big events. They have a big corporate following. They've got, thousands of people that attend them. And the Jack Daniel's is nice and intimate, if that makes any sense. It's kind of like we always equate the golf kind of with, equates nicely with barbecue, and that would be more like the Masters, where it's just a little more intimate, a little more tradition, and a lot of fun. So that's always mine. That's usually the middle of October, and fortunate enough to win that a few years ago, and hopefully we can win it again here coming up. But that's I think the 10th or the 11th of October this year. If you have anybody gets a chance to go down to Lynchburg, it's cool to see, and it is my favorite event of the year.
What is your favorite category and least favorite category?
Well, it just depends. This past week, my least favorite was brisket, but normally I'm pretty good at that. But my favorite category to cook is probably ribs. Just because the way I cook and the condensed timeline of cooking a rib, it's a really active cook, and it takes a lot of skill to get right. And so I really enjoy cooking ribs. My least favorite is probably chicken, just because I'm good at it, but it's more of the most robotic cooks, if that makes any sense. It's more time and temperature and process than it is the art of barbecue, whereas brisket and ribs are more truly the art of barbecue and getting that thing right.
What's your wife's name?
Sarah.
So how much immense pressure is on you when Sarah says, Brad, what's for dinner? What are you cooking up tonight?
We don't ever have barbecue, so that's the thing. But I mean, I've always been the cook in the house, right? And that's just what we've done. And I started out long before I did barbecue seriously. I would cook, you know, I would cook everything at the house, and some of my favorite stuff to do. I love like Southern food, Louisiana food. We cook a lot of Latin American foods. My wife was a Spanish teacher for years. She now does the catering for the restaurants, but she had spent a lot of time in Latin America, and me by extension could get places that normally wouldn't be able to go due to the language barrier. And so I cook a ton of that kind of food. I cook everything. I mean, I love cooking. And, I honestly, I do it less and less now with the restaurants and the competition than I used to, but we always cook, we managed to make something, and it's rarely barbecue in my family right now. They are barbecued out. That's for sure.
Who's your favorite NFL team?
Chiefs.
Chiefs.
Yeah.
So who are the Raiders to your Chiefs in barbecue competition?
But I got to find somebody that's not any good.
Yeah.
So somebody I don't like that's not any good. I don't know.
There you go.
Fall by the wayside. As far as rivals go, the last couple of years, there's a guy out of Kansas City, Joe Pierce from Slaps Barbecue. Mm-hmm. I don't know if the Raiders is a good. It probably is a good. He finished second. So I won Team of the Year in 2020 and 21. He finished second both those years. He finished second to me when I won the Jack Daniels, and so. But he's also one of my best friends, and we became very close through the process. Chasing each other across the country, and so I don't know if he's definitely not a hated rival, but I mean. Hey, ton of respect for the guy. The guy can cook, and if somebody's going to beat me, this year in Lenexa, Kansas, we were up there, and he ended up beating me there on his home turf in Kansas City, Kansas. So if I've got to pick somebody that's a rival, it's going to be Mr. Joe Pierce up there in Kansas City, even though we are best friends, and he's got a tremendous restaurant. It's really cool to have somebody that goes through the same stuff you're doing, because I can get restaurant tips from him. We can talk barbecue. We can do whatever. So the only thing Joe can beat me at though is golf. That's it. So,
well, I'll tell you, his sauce is awesome too. That Slaps sauce.
I'll sneak it in every now and then on the competition stuff. He's got the smoky slaps, and I'll mix it with the Gettin Basted sauce. So I call it the smoky basted. And so I'll mix his sauce and mine actually on brisket a lot and put it on there. So,
and does that make him even madder if you beat him because you used his sauce to beat himself?
No, he's trying to sell sauce. He loves it if I use it. As long as I talk about it. He makes more money selling sauce than he does winning the barbecue competition.
So we'll kind of throw some tips in for the backyard guys here, because there'll be a lot of them watching and listening. How important are the choice of rub and sauce to the final product?
I mean, it's important in that you find something that's good that you like, but man, there's so many good commercial products out there in the grocery store. I mean, one that most competition cooks use, obviously Order Mine would be the first choice, but Blues Hog is now in every Walmart across the country, and a ton of competition cooks use that. It's more of a glaze than a sauce. It's not really a dipping sauce. It's like a finishing glaze, but there's so many good products. Head Country is another product that a lot of people use. You go find Joe's, you can find mine. It's as long as you're using a good commercial sauce and rub, you're going to do just fine. And you can make your own. Some people like that challenge as well. That's part of the fun if you have fun doing it. But if you don't want to waste the time, there's so many good commercial products out there that it is important, but it's really hard to mess up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know that, some places just slap a label and it's made in like a factory. You actually made your Gettin Basted sauce, right?
Well, so we have somebody co-packing it now, but it's a small individual. But actually, the guy that makes my sauce commercially packages it, and Joe sauce is the same place. We get it done.
The recipe is yours, though.
Yes,
right?
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. We're on too big a scale to sit there and mix it up back in pots anymore in the back. It's the same stuff.
State the case for hot and fast versus low and slow, and because you're a hot and fast guy, how did that originate? Because I think wasn't low and slow the way that everybody went for years and years.
Yeah, I mean, I think. If you're doing a traditional offset, even though a lot of those guys have kicked up the fires as well, low and slow or some of these cabinet smokers, stuff like that, even the electric smokers that somebody might have, and frankly, pellet cookers that a lot of people have, it's probably best to still stick around that low and slow to get more flavor on it. But cooking on cans, cooking over open fire, cooking on stuff, man, we're in a really, really harsh environment. A lot of flame, a lot of dryness, a lot of air moving, and the faster that we can get a piece of meat tender and off that thing, the better off we are, the more moisture we're going to retain. So the argument is that we can get everything done. We can get it done fast and get it out of that harsh, dry environment sooner than you can low and slow. They're both good ways to do it, man. I'm an old school barbecue guy. Sometimes you want to sit around and just tend to fire, you know what I mean? And fire something up. And sometimes it's a social experiment. Sometimes you want to eat. And so they're both valid ways. I honestly could set the two side by side if you were cooking and you wouldn't know which one was hot and fast, which one was low and slow. So I'm not going to be here to tell you that the only way to skin the cat is to go hot and fast. I will tell you for competition, and it showed up a little bit in the barbecue brawl thing, that doing hot and fast at these competitions that I drive around every weekend keeps me from getting worn out. It lets me get some sleep. It lets me do it every weekend. It lets me go home. I'm not sitting there every Friday night staying up all night and then trying to operate throughout the week. I get up at 6 a.m. It's just another day at work for me, and that's what hot and fast allows me to do in the competition world. And then we took that, obviously, the original restaurant concept. We were cooking on those cans just like we do at the competition, brought the hot and fast there. And, we since have switched over to larger smokers that are running a little bit slower. We still turn the heat up, but not quite as much as we used to. And so there's no wrong way to barbecue. I always tell people that, the key thing is cook it until you get the color you want, that nice mahogany barbecue flavor, no matter what you're cooking on. And then we always wrap, we do the Texas crutch, and you can use butcher paper, use foil, put a little bit of flavorful liquid in there, and then you want to go until it's tender and just use a probe to let you know when it's tender. And if you do that every time, no matter what piece of meat you're cooking, you're going to be knocked lights out. You're going to do it perfect.
Do you have a wood preference flavor?
Yeah, hickory is what we're using for the most part, the competition and the restaurants. We'll use pecan. Sometimes we can't get hickory. We'll use pecan with very, very similar flavor profiles. So one of those two are the ones I've used. But, honestly, that, any of the fruit woods are good. The ones you steer clear of probably are mesquite. It's a little bit strong. Some of the post oak stuff can be a little bit strong unless you know what you're doing. We have a lot of oak in Missouri, so just regular oak, is fine. Burns hot, it's good. But I use hickory predominantly.
Backyard guy, prefer griddle, pellet smoker, ceramic smoker like a Big Green Egg, or barrel? What are you going to use?
Oh, you got to get a barrel if you're a backyard guy. I mean, honestly, they run themselves essentially, and there's a lot of great ones out there. I know, I use Gateway drum smokers. They're a little higher end. Pit barrel cooker makes a lower end one that's a little bit cheaper, and it runs itself. Either one of those, and the cool thing about it is they're so easy to operate. You're not worried about loading wood, loading whatever. You start with charcoal, use a good lump charcoal, which we're fortunate in Missouri. A lot of the best stuff is made right here. And you put a little bit of wood on there, 2 or 3 chunks of wood, and then you just put the meat on there and let it go. It's air in, air out. You get the real slow, the smoked stick burner barbecue flavor that you might not necessarily get off your pellet cooker, but you get the ease of operation of a pellet cooker. So to me, if you're just starting out, or you want to take, or if you already got a pellet cooker, you want to kick up your game a little bit, go get a barrel smoker and learn how to use that. And, the eggs are cool for grilling a steak or doing something like that. You don't want to barbecue on one of those. If I'm just starting out, pellet cooker, ease, plug in, but the barrel smokers are about the only way to go.
What's the most common mistake you see backyard cooks make now?
Well, I think it always starting out, right? You're barbecuing meat, you're smoking, you're whatever, you over smoke your meat. And so I think the most common mistake is just to use too much wood or green wood or whatever. Just remember, smoke is an ingredient, just like salt, pepper, anything else, smoke is the ingredient, and too much can be bad. So just controlling that and getting out of the see that the competitions all the time, these guys are just piling smoke on the meat, and it doesn't need it. It just needs a nice light smoke.
So if we're ranking things for the beginner to the hardest, easiest to toughest, does it start with, pulled pork, a Boston butt, and then work its way up to brisket? Or how would you rank the difficulty for the backyard guy?
Yeah, but chicken, if you're just, it depends on if you're doing competition or home stuff. But chickens, you can just take a good half chicken, throw it on one of these barrel smokers for like an hour. Yeah. And it's going to be the best thing you ever had. So hit a glaze at the end, it's going to be the best thing you ever had. So that's the easiest thing. Second would definitely be your pork, because you can cook the heck out of it, right? You can, and it's really forgiving. There's a lot of fat in there. There's a lot of connective tissue in the muscle, so you can really overcook that thing without drying it out. And then I think you go on brisket ribs, or up there at the top, where they can be finicky. I mean, if you're looking for fall off the bone ribs, they're not that difficult. You're overcooking those. But if you're looking for like a KCBS good, bite rib that's very tender but still holds its integrity, that's a difficult thing to achieve, because there's a fine line between perfect and overcooked, if that makes sense. And then brisket's the tough one. But the main thing about brisket is I think where people miss is they undercook them. And so as I always tell people, when you're cooking barbecue, if you're poking something and you're not sure, you got to ask yourself, is this done yet? It's not done. Right. So if it's not, you're like, man, that might be tender enough. Nope. If you're even asking yourself that question, if you're, when you probe something, you should be like, yep, that's done. And then you can pull it. If you're like, man, is it done? Nope. Go cook it another 30 minutes. Come back and check it. And I think on those long cooked meats, I think they tend to be undercooked more than overcooked. And people who cook to a temperature, it's always time and temperature. So if you're cooking hotter, your finishing temperatures will be hotter. So if you're following something that says, hey, pull a pork butt at 198, you're cooking hot and fast, you're going to have a piece of shoe leather. So just always go by that probe feel, and overcooked barbecue is still good. Undercooked barbecue is never good.
You got great burgers at Basted. What's the secret, and what would you tell the backyard burger cooker?
Man, I mean, we use a good quality meat. So we're using meat from Snake River Farms, and just a good blend, flavorful cuts of meat, and Gettin Basted, we actually use a smash burger. We kind of started out in the Starlight Theater down in Branson, and it was the old diner, so we had a flat top there. And so we started out, we did smash burgers. We're at the Downey Street Poorhouse, which is another one of my concepts. We actually serve charbroiled burgers, and so they're both, like, to me, they're the two best burgers in Branson. They're just completely opposite differences. But just starting out, anything barbecue, burgers down to ribs, brisket. The cut of meat, the piece of meat you start with, has a tremendous impact on the end product.
So about 15 years ago, if I'd have told you you'd be on here doing a podcast as a grand champion, world champion barbecue guy, telling me how to fix a burger and a brisket, and you're a Missouri Sports Hall of Famer, would you believe me?
No. I mean, and it's just no, absolutely not. And you know how you get there. You just kind of wake up one morning and you're there, right? Like people always ask you, it's like, man, I was just putting one foot in front of the other, going to competitions, and then the next thing you wake up and you got the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame calling you, and the Kansas City Barbecue Society Hall of Fame, and it was just never something that I necessarily, I always struck, I'm a competitor, I like to win, but these are never really goals that I didn't even think Missouri Sports Hall of Fame was obtainable for a barbecuer. So no, absolutely not. I told you were crazy.
How old are you now?
I am 52.
So, unlike other sports, I mean, you don't have to run, you don't have to swing a club, you don't have to do anything that age is going to catch up with you. How long do you do the competitive barbecue thing, and what would be the thing that would cause you to finally say, I'm done?
Well, I mean, you look, enjoyment is what's going to put you in there and out. I mean, you can eventually age. It's like there's no wear and tear on your body. You are pulling trailers, hauling smokers, doing maintenance on stuff, changing oil. You're doing stuff that eventually will age you out. But certainly I've got, plenty of time left in me for that. So I think as long as I'm enjoying it, I'm going to do it. Right. And I'm hoping, my daughter Molly was on MasterChef Junior, and I'm hoping, her or Ellie, my middle child, or Hudson, man, I'd love to set them up and let them take this thing over, teach them how to cook and say, here you go, you give them the keys. And so hopefully I can pass it on. But I mean, I'll continue to cook as long as I'm having fun, as long as I enjoy it, as long as my family enjoys it. And right now they enjoy just getting me out of the house. If I stick around, they're looking at me, what are you doing here, Dad? If I'm there on a Saturday, they think something's wrong. So as long as I don't have obligations, I can continue to do it. I'll still cook. And I go through cycles of cooking a lot. And last year I kind of didn't cook. It sounds like a lot, but some years I've done as many as 50 contests. Last year I think I did 15 or 16. This year I'm on pace. I'll probably end up doing 30 to 32 contests. So I'll kind of cycle up and down how much I do, just based on commitments and desire. But as long as I'm enjoying it, I'll keep cooking.
What's the kids' favorite meal at home?
The kids, chicken, chicken tenders. We got side chick now, so they love that. That's where they always want to go. But that, especially my youngest, Molly, she loves to cook. She's a tremendous cook. She can mess up a kitchen like no other, but she cooks her own meals every day almost. And she's super healthy. So she's making sweet potatoes and Buddha bowls, and she's cooking up all kinds of grains and vegetables and everything else. So I need to turn my diet over to her, honestly, is kind of my plan. So just feed me. But so she likes to cook, really adventurous. And my middle daughter is starting to. It's kind of cool to see because, they kind of break out of that kids meal mentality, and they start being adventurous when they're eating. And we like to travel a lot, so it's kind of fun to watch them do that. But my middle daughter loves a lot of Asian foods, and so it's pretty fun to watch her. And that's one of my favorite cuisines too. So I've got a lot in common when we go places to eat with her.
You mentioned, I think you only worked 7 sponsors into the podcast. Do you have like a NASCAR type shirt or bass fisherman shirt with all the patches or not?
I really, I don't, my sponsors, Prairie Fresh ribs that we use in the restaurants are one of my longtime sponsors, and Snake River Farms that we use their briskets. So whether I'm sponsoring them or they're sponsoring me, we cut them some pretty big checks. They give me a little bit of product back in return. The other products, man, I don't take a lot of sponsorships because I don't do like paid for endorsements. I need to believe in your product. So yeah. I don't, I use Blues Hog products. I don't get paid by Blues Hog. He's a good friend of mine. He should pay me if he sees this, but he should write me a big old check. But yeah, I use it for Gateway Drum Smokers. These are products I believe on, not necessarily sponsors. And so we do, man. You've seen barbecue cooks. We tend to NASCAR up a little bit. I almost started doing it as a joke, just putting patches all over. But now I've got so many restaurants now. I don't need to put anybody else's brands on it. I just put my restaurants all over the place and then roll out and go. So it's always fun. Barbecues, we always say they'll do anything for you for a t-shirt. And so, they just want to feel like they belong and they're sponsored and everything else. But yeah, really Prairie Fresh and Snake River Farms, if you guys get a chance to support them, they're good companies, good people at them, and products that we use in the restaurants every day.
Well, that all the colleges now, who'd have thought 15 years ago we'd have fishing teams and shotgun sports teams. You need to push for barbecue competition teams at the college level and then be Coach Brad.
And they do that. They have them. Missouri is one of the leading spots, and it's not necessarily in college yet, but it's in high school. So they have, so Texas has got, Texas obviously a ton of barbecue, and Missouri both have a ton of high school barbecue. And it's cool to see actually the people that run the contest out in Osceola, Missouri, are heavily involved in the high school barbecue scene here in Missouri. And they had their barbecue championship up there in Kansas City, Kansas, earlier this year, maybe a couple of months ago. And so they were up there with Joe, giving him a hard time. So it's really coming. And I know there are teams like Texas Tech always has their ag program. Arkansas last year, their ag program had a contest, and they have people that are getting into it on the college level. So I think it's something that's coming. It's definitely already happened on the high school level, and it wouldn't surprise me at the college level if it happened. I can be the Bears' new barbecue head coach going out there.
Yes, so, Coach Brad, right?
It's fun. It's fun to get involved. And we have something called the Barbecue League. That's an educational piece that I do with Tim Shear from Blues Hog, and we give that out to the high school barbecuers and people that are coming in because it really helps them learn how to barbecue in the competition barbecue.
Very good. Well, Brad, we certainly appreciate your time. Congratulations on the run to the finals. If they call you again, you said you'd entertain doing it again to try to get that mastery Q or.
Yeah, we got to bring that Brawl Stars back, man. I got to take Kyle down. So
there you go.
Yeah, if we get a chance to do an all-star episode, I'll for sure be in there, man. It was fun, and it's not something I do. I like new experiences, and that's the attraction of it to me. I'm not necessarily need to be master of Q, even though I'd like to be, but it'd be cool to win an all-star episode. I can tell you that. I'm just saving it. I didn't want to peak too early.
Well, hey, we appreciate it, and best of luck to you, and we'll catch up with you again, okay?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you.
You bet. Thanks, Brad. Brad Leininger coming on with us to talk about the Barbecue Brawl, which finished up, as he mentioned, was taped back in February down in Austin, Texas. The final episode ran this past Sunday. Had a pretty involved local following in that, judged by social media there, and he made it to the final 3. He actually tied for the most points after the judges in all the cook-offs, but they broke the tie for no reason stated and gave it to Kyle, one of his earlier teammates. So we thank Brad for his time, and we love eating at his restaurants too. Going to mention our great sponsors of Around the Ozark Sports Scene, Fast Break Sports at 3109 South Campbell. They're your home for all things sports cards and collectibles. The new Topps baseball card series are out. Get over and check those out. I know their Facebook page, they've been mentioning some of the pulls they've got over there, one-of-one cards and things like that. So go see Fast Break for the latest in sports cards. The Pitch Pizza and Pub, located in the Southern Hills Shopping Center off East Sunshine. Your home for great pizzas, calzones, all the tremendous appetizers they have, lunch or dinner, frosty beverages, sports on TVs all around the place. Go visit the Pitch Pizza and Pub. If you've got a meeting need or a special party, Brian Bevel and his team has meeting space over there as well, so give them a call. And finally, Thompson Sales, our newest sponsor, been in business since 1919. They are celebrating their 106th anniversary this month. That sale ends at the end of July, so go over and check out their great selection of new and used cars and trucks, Dodge, Cadillac, Chryslers. They're all over there at Thompson Sales. I'm sorry, Buick. I'm getting my chains mixed up there. But they've got them. They've got everything. They've got used cars. They got new. They got a great service center, 1555 East Independence. Miles, Tyler, Troy, all the boys over there will take care of you at Thompson Sales. Big thanks to Brad for joining us, talking barbecue. It's fun to talk a little backyard barbecue strategy there. We appreciate that, and we appreciate you. We'll see you next week on Around the Ozark Sports Scene.